We are Matt and Jessica, a couple of Michiganders who, back in 2012, decided they'd had enough of the rat race and shoved off for more distant horizons in their 34-foot sailboat Serendipity. Taking on parts of the Caribbean and sailing 3/4 of the way across the Atlantic, we arrived in the Azores only to fall into deep longing for a project boat back in Florida. Temporarily throwing away our plans for the Med, we crossed back to Florida to begin a complete overhaul on the boat we just purchased, a 1983 Chisaloo, a custom aluminum sailboat. For the past year and a half, we've been slaving away as we live aboard to turn her into our dream boat, making lots of mistakes but also learning along the way. Join us as we get her ready for her first time in the water in 10 years and eventually sail away to those distant horizons once again. I just realized that from the last episode when we got back to boat work, I never mentioned us doing the bottom again, which a few episodes ago we actually probably spent a few episodes working on it, where we were trying to smooth out the welds and the seams a little bit by adding fairing compound, and then we would have to sand that down and then hit the spots again with anti-fouling paint to cover up the areas that we all went through to metal. And we were just having a grand old time, spending about 3 weeks doing that one project, and then it just kind of dropped off the radar. But what happened there is we decided after I think the 4th round of filler just to go through to coat the whole bottom with another barrier coat of paint. And so Matt borrowed a leaf blower from a friend and made sure to remove all dust and debris from it so that we didn't just wipe it in as we were going through to clean it. I went around and taped off the whole boat, and then I think we spent about 2 afternoons, because we were working with a 4-inch roller, one person at a time, just going through and adding our white paint to the boat just to see how it would all come out. I think we're pretty happy with how it's turned out so far. We could go through again and do another round, but honestly it doesn't have to be that perfect, and we're both just kind of tired of working on it. So for now, that's how it's going to sit until we're getting ready to go in the water, and then we'll add probably 2 more barrier coats and then 2 anti-fouling coats and call that good. So that's what's going on with that project, which kind of dropped off the radar a while ago. The big thing that we were working on this week, though, was the engine. If you saw in the last episode, Matt was working with the fuel lines. So once we got all of that taken care of, we put fuel back in the tanks, and Matt went through getting the engine prepped so that we could try and start it. So he did a bit of cleaning and tinkering, and I'll kind of let him talk about what he did there a second.
The oil just ended up adding to the top of the cylinders through the injection port. Basically, it was just to make sure if the rings were stuck, it's going to help unstick them, and also just make sure you coat the inside of the engine. So what I did was pull out the injectors, filled up each one of the cylinders from the top end with Marvel Mystery Oil, and rotated once a day. Basically, I'd rotate just a little bit on the crank and rotated the engine around. So I did a couple of loops of 360 over the course of a week and a half, whatever it ended up being. And then we took the pump and pumped each one out completely to make sure that there's nothing left in there, put new rings on the injectors, dropped them in place, and good to go. So it was just a precautionary thing, wasn't totally necessary, but thought it was better safe than sorry.
Especially with the 10-year and oil.
Yeah, with sitting there for 10 years, it just made sense to try to lube it up as much as possible and make sure the compression was good.
Is it sucking in fuel right now, or trying to?
Should be.
Cool.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to give a little.
So what you need to do then is you're going to be in control of the hose.
Okay. Go deaf from the beeping.
Yep. So right now we're just pumping fresh fuel through, conditioned fuel specifically. So hopefully it lubricates all the pump, lubricates everything. It's got fresh oil in it, which we'll end up replacing after we run it just for a little bit. Also, we have gone through, I replaced the impeller, so it's got a new impeller in it, lube that up. Fresh water is going to be going through it. Fresh fuel is going to be going through it. So it should be all set there. We did, as you saw, we did take the injectors out, put Marvel mystery fluid in each one of the cylinders, let it sit, rotated it slowly over the course of a couple of days just to make sure that the rings weren't stuck. So we got that, sucked all the fluid back out, so that is clean. Put the injectors back in with new seals, so it should be all set there. Sure, I'm missing something. The transmission's in neutral. We're going to check the throttle again just to make sure. I don't have anything connected right now, so it should pull cords coming through here. And then we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
See if it fires up.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. It's only been 10 years.
So once he had gone through it and gotten it ready, it was time to see if it would actually start for us. This engine has been sitting with the boat in Indiantown Marina since 2006, I think. So we were pretty worried about the engine, if it would start or not, having been just sitting there untouched for 10 plus years. It's probably the biggest project or the biggest worry we've had with everything is if the engine would start. So after cleaning it up, we decided to give it a try and see what would happen. You ready for this?
Maybe. So what we're going to do the first couple of times, we're going to be holding in the stop button while we try starting it. And in doing so, we hopefully should be building some oil pressure before we actually let it fire for the first time. So let's go. Ready?
You're ready.
No, not yet.
Okay.
So the engine's sat for 10 years now, not being used. Huh?
Do you want to get those people it's running?
Yes, because I wanted background noise.
All right.
But, so 10 years at least since this engine's been started. Fired right up, first try, which is a good sign. Again, oil pressure's fine, everything looks good. Cosmetics aren't the greatest. It's had water dripping on it for 10 years. So we need to go through, wire wheel it, prime it and paint it again so it's all nice and shiny and that pretty Yanmar gray. But yeah, good news. Success.
Let's celebrate.
One thing I feared, yeah, beach day.
Oh yeah, beach and beer. My two favorite things.
Of course, once it did start, it was a huge weight off our shoulders and kind of a cause for celebration. Our beach day is still on hold for a few more days until this kind of like cold, windy front goes through. We were going to go a few days ago, but it's just been in the low 70s and windy, not good for a beach. But it has been good for our next project, which is going through and doing some sanding and painting. The last area that we've left untouched for painting was our cockpit because we had those big blue barrels of mystery fluid sitting in there, which finally just got removed a bit ago and opened the space up. This is kind of gross. This is what happens when you let your cockpit sit for about a year with just everything dumping into it. Blech. Good thing I don't mind getting dirty. They're really dirty. And good thing I have a spare toothbrush. So we went through the same process that we did for everything else and the same process on the bottom, if you're following that. We needed to get it down to bare metal again. So between Matt and I, we take the orbital sander and get all the layers of paint off and get down to bare metal. So I just find out why I'm not usually the one to handle power tools outside. We're sanding the cockpit and I got my leg with the sander. It doesn't look like anything too serious, but still not a lot of fun, so gonna get it cleaned up and get back to work. Because the cockpit was kind of mid-size, we knew that we wouldn't be able to sand it all down to metal and coat it with a primer within about the hour to hour and a half allowance we have before it started oxidizing. So we decided the best route for us was that we were going to get it down to bare metal, which I think took us about 2 days because Matt had a lot of welds to take the grinder to clean them out. And then once it was down to metal, we went back and sectioned it between port side, starboard side, and the engine well area. And for each section, we would go back through with the sander, just kind of clean it up a little bit, get some fresh metal, and then we would go through and get the primer on there. So for a day or two there, we had a really sunny cockpit. And this is our very yellow cockpit. Still getting the second layer of Aluma prep on a couple parts, but yeah, we were able to get all of it today. 2 coats. Very bright. I'll try and get another angle of it. And Matt's too tired to work anymore. Bah humbug.
Bah humbug.
The next step after that was to get our barrier coat on there, doing 2 layers. So without doing any sanding first, I went through and mixed up our Interprotect 2000E, I think it is, and just used the high density foam roller brushes and got that on there. Such a nice pretty white. We've got 1 barrier coat on so far on top of our Aluma prep, and it's still white right now before it's going to get kind of gray and dullish, but that's alright because it's only going to sit for a day or 2, so I just get to enjoy it before the trouble of sanding starts, which I loathe. But right now, tonight, I am happy with this. After the Interprotect was on, that did need a good sanding, so I think I spent a day or so sanding it down to a smooth finish to get it ready for the primer, which for the primer we were using Interprotect Prime Coat, which is still a 2-part 3-to-1 ratio of primer. The next step that we'd be taking is to do our top coat, which what we've used on the boat so far is Petit or Petit, however you pronounce it. 2-part easy epoxy. And so after I got the prime coat on, I would have sanded that down to a smooth finish, and we would have been getting it prepped to do the easy epoxy on top of there. But we kind of halted ourselves at that point and added and as soon as we were getting so close to the water, we have just added a huge weight to our shoulders, a big project. But I'm going to be saving that for the next episode, so make sure to stay tuned for our next episode, where we take all of our not perfectly good but mostly good petite easy epoxy and strip it all off the boat, because we are going over to all grip.
Being a real bad boy. I've got a ton of gravel in my shoes, world on my shoulders, a heart full of blues.